2018 was the year that Marvel did the impossible. They started the year off strong with Black Panther, widely beloved by fans and especially critics, which allowed it to be the first and only MCU movie to score a Best Picture nomination at the Oscars. They then followed it up with Avengers: Infinity War, the epic culmination of 18 films and 10 years of storytelling that somehow surpassed fan expectations. With 2 back-to-back mega hits, Marvel was on top of the world, and it honestly seemed like they could do no wrong leading up to Endgame. And then Ant-Man and the Wasp came out. It's safe to say the movie was divisive on release, with fan consensus ranging from, yeah, it's pretty good, to, this movie is garbage made for grown-up children who have had their imaginations co-opted by consumerism. However, it is better than last year's downsizing because you get to see small things become big, and big things become small. And that is amusing.
Oh my god!
We're now 8 years separated from this movie's release, and general audiences are still lower on Ant-Man and the Wasp than I feel they should be. Whenever I bring this movie up, I'm hit with the same words: boring, unimpactful, and messy. And it just hurts my ant-sized heart because to me, Ant-Man and the Wasp is a great MCU sequel, and a generally fun watch. Now, this video isn't me arguing that Ant-Man 2 is peak cinema and without problems. I know there are things in this movie that don't work or feel unnecessary, but my point here isn't to convince you this movie is the next Godfather, or Get Out, or 2020's Dolittle starring John Cena as a polar bear named Yoshi, because it's obviously not. Honestly, this movie reminds me of how Martin Scorsese describes Marvel movies: theme park rides. But I don't really see that as a bad thing. Just like a theme park ride, Ant-Man and the Wasp drops you into a charming and exciting world with a plot that moves until the very end. And in my opinion, if you watch it through that lens, it's a damn good ride. All that prefacing to say, I'm simply trying to enlighten people to Ant-Man and the Wasp being a good MCU movie, since it's constantly at the bottom of people's lists. Now with all that out of the way, let me start my defense with... this movie has a lot of characters. And while there are some that aren't the best, I feel like all of them give great performances and serve the plot of the movie well. Starting with our title characters, Ant-Man and the Wasp, both are great here, with their arcs from the first movie being expanded upon in a satisfying way. In the first Ant-Man, Scott has to learn how to be a hero after being a screw-up for so long. And in this one, he now has to deal with the consequences of being a hero after his actions in Civil War, which is just the typical MCU sequel arc, but it still works here. And Hope, or the Wasp, is given, well, hope in this movie. Compared to the first film, it's almost like she's been given a second lease on life. She's finally a superhero, her mom is theoretically alive, and she grew hair. A nice trajectory to see a character go from a little dull and cynical in their first appearance to more energetic and in the fray in the second. Alongside the two is Hank Pym, who shares a similar arc to the Wasp while also having to deal with his past behaviors as they come back to bite him in the ass / lab. I see a lot of people say this movie doesn't really push the main characters forward at all, and I completely disagree. Beyond the arcs the main three go through, we also get to see how these characters are impacted by the events of Civil War. After all, Scott did steal the Ant-Man suit he used in the airport fight without telling anyone. This not only got Scott arrested, but also made Hope and Hank fugitives by association, rightfully making them lose trust in Scott.
What?
Like, yeah, if my girlfriend blew up an airport while dressed in my suit, I'd be a little pissed too. Scott doesn't just get a free pass for his actions here. Hope and Hank only contact him out of necessity for their mission, and it's only when he risks everything to save them that they forgive him. Scott's whole goal for the past 2 years has been to get off house arrest and be with his daughter. But risking his own freedom to save Hank and Hope shows he's learned that being a hero means putting others first. A growth from the selfish choice he made in Civil War. Continuing with our cast, unlike a certain other Ant-Man movie that will remain nameless and most certainly doesn't rhyme with Quantumania, but unlike that movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp remembers that Ant-Man has a supporting cast. Luis and the rest of Scott's heist gang are back, mostly providing comedic relief. But welcome comedic relief. Their bits in this one are just so damn funny, with being one of my all-time favorite MCU jokes. Luis gives one of his signature manic recaps, the whole truth serum exchange makes me laugh, and just the fact that 3 previous criminals now run a security camera company called XCon is so damn good.
Money.
While they don't necessarily play a pivotal role in the story, I think what they're given here is perfect for the goofy side characters and comparable to their roles in Ant-Man 1. And the fact they're even here at all is a huge positive. On top of the returning characters, we're now introduced to Sonny Birch, a corrupt businessman who wants to sell Hank Pym's creations on the black market, Bill Foster, an ex-associate of Hank Pym who turns out to be working with Ghost, the film's primary antagonist. We also have Janet Van Dyne, Hank's wife, who's been trapped in the quantum realm for 30 years, and the GOAT Jimmy Woo, baby, woo! An FBI agent who has a figurative and literal hard-on for Scott while he's on house arrest. Many of the issues people have with this movie seem to stem from the new characters, more specifically Ghost. Some people see her as underbaked, annoying, and not a real villainous presence. And I just want to say,
hey, y'all come look at this.
I honestly believe Ghost is super misunderstood, and actually a pretty layered antagonist. I want to start with her backstory because I think it actually works and makes her really sympathetic. Her dad used to work for Hank Pym until the two had a big falling out. This resulted in Daddy Ghost being blacklisted from the whole science world. So, in his mad attempts to prove he still got it, he proves he doesn't still got it, and causes a huge explosion that seemingly kills his whole family. That is until it turns out little Ava survived, but now suffers a super painful condition that causes her body to go in and out of phase with reality. She's then taken in by S.H.I.E.L.D., who trains her as an assassin in exchange for a cure that ultimately never came. Since S.H.I.E.L.D. collapsed in Winter Soldier, she's now taken that mission into her own hands through whatever means necessary. Her motivations for stealing the lab in this movie boil down to using it to fix her chronic, painful condition. She's not evil, but broken and in pain. In terms of MCU villains, she has a lot more depth than characters like Yellow Jacket from the first Ant-Man and the leader in Brave New World, because in her eyes, fighting and stealing is the only way she can save herself from a life of suffering. This in turn recontextualizes the character's flaws of being annoying and not a true villain into positive attributes. Because for me, the sign of a good villain is someone who does wrong but still makes you ask, wouldn't you do the same? And I feel like Ghost perfectly captures that feeling, and it makes me so happy we're finally getting to see more of her. I also think her powers are a perfect match for Ant-Man and the Wasps. While that isn't the strongest MCU power set, it relies on ambushing enemies and surprising them with a quick takedown, which is the same strategy as Ant-Man and the Wasp since their powers also rely on surprise. They're both sneaky, but don't necessarily provide a huge physical advantage, making them perfect matches for each other. I truly feel that most of the criticism Ghost gets should be redirected towards Sonny Birch, who is seemingly only around to be Southern and run away, and Bill Foster, who we learn has been working with Ghost for years after he helps our main characters track her down. Which has never made sense to me. You'd think if he's helping the villain, he wouldn't help the heroes stop her plans. But beyond that, Foster pretty much has the same backstory as Ghost's dad, with him being pushed out by Hank Pym, but instead of actually committing to being an antagonist, he constantly wavers between helping Ghost and telling her she's going too far. He doesn't serve any actual purpose in the movie besides the fact that he's from the comics and whoa! While Birch does impact the plot more than Foster, both characters just feel poorly executed and ultimately bring the movie down. I feel like if these characters had been utilized better, it would make a world of difference with people's impressions of this movie. But yeah, for the most part, this movie's cast all give great performances that push the main characters forward while expanding the world and lore of the first movie. Speaking of pushing characters forward, what actually happens in this movie?
What?
For those who haven't seen the movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp revolves around rescuing Janet Van Dyne from the quantum realm, and specifically the shrinking lab they used to do that. The lab serves as the main MacGuffin of the movie, with it being passed around like a dab pen in a high school bathroom. Like seriously, the amount of times this thing is stolen and stolen back is wild. Now while some might see this game of keep away as a negative that drags the movie out, I think that setup works well for how quick the pacing is here. Most scenes are tight and don't linger on any bits of exposition or humor for too long. The movie itself is just over 2 hours long, but it honestly feels closer to an hour and a half with how fast everything moves. Like I feel like I can sum up the basic plot of this thing in 30 seconds. Let's see. Expanded flashback of Janet getting stuck in the quantum realm, intro showing off Scott's relationship with Cassie while he's on house arrest. Scott has a vision of Janet that begins the main plot. The Ant Gang gets back together, the Wasp fights some goons, Ghost ends the fight and steals the lab. They find Bill Foster and track down Ghost with his help. We learn Ghost's backstory and then boom, they take the lab back. The gang almost gets Janet back, but the FBI arrests Hank and Hope. Scott rescues them and boom, third act. Hank goes into the quantum realm, fun car chase sequence, Hank finds Janet, chase ends, short final confrontation between Ant-Man, Wasp, and Ghost, family is reunited, Ghost is healed, and boom, movie over. Did I do it?
Yes.
Now, if you haven't seen the movie, you might be saying, that's it? And you wouldn't be alone. One huge complaint about Ant-Man and the Wasp is that nothing happens, and it's a skippable MCU movie. And yeah, I'm not gonna beat around the anthill. In the grand scheme of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this movie doesn't really move the needle, doesn't have super high stakes, nor does it change the character status quo. But let me ask, do you actually want that from an Ant-Man movie? Quantumania already tried the whole cosmic level stakes thing, and we obviously saw how that worked out. So I really don't think that's what the character needs. Having a guy whose main shtick is getting small beat a world ender like Kang just doesn't feel right because that's not who the character is. Even in the comics, the character doesn't face off against super powerful villains. Beyond Ultron, his most famous rogues are Whirlwind, Egghead, and Yellow Jacket whenever Hank decides to get angry. Like, these are not major powerhouses because it wouldn't make sense for them to cross paths with Ant-Man. Like, it's the same as if they had Captain America fight a Hulk. Oh, wait. The first Ant-Man movie thrived off its small stakes, creative action, and humor, which this movie has in droves, while also connecting to the broader MCU more than its predecessor. So I'm truly lost on what people wanted to happen here, because for me, this is a perfectly suitable Ant-Man plot. And if you're still not satisfied, the movie's first post-credits scene directly sets up Avengers Endgame by showing us that the Quantum Realm can be easily reached through a tunnel in Scott's van, which is the entire reason the Avengers are able to reverse the snap. So boom!
You looking for this?
Beyond the characters and plot, this movie has so much else that works. So let's do a little speed round of things that I think deserve praise. Pym particles are used in such a creative way. Like that Letterboxd review said, small things become big, and big things become small. And that was definitely amusing. The giant salt shaker and Pez dispenser, and the tiny cars and lab were all really cool visuals that could only happen in a movie like this. San Francisco feels full and alive during the third act chase. Having civilians around always adds to the tension of an action scene, but I think it's equally smart and hilarious that many of them are more confused than they are scared. Since a world that's been through robot takeovers and alien invasions would probably see a superhero car chase as just another Tuesday at this point. The Quantum Realm looks trippy, stylized, and honestly a bit terrifying, and not like a knockoff Star Wars planet. And this shot of Scott on the windshield wipers is sick and very reminiscent of the first Ant-Man. The fact this movie connects so much to Civil War is so refreshing after the mess of a timeline that is Phases 4 and 5. As I mentioned earlier, Civil War does a lot to set up what the characters in this movie have been doing for the past 2 years. But none of these connections feel forced. They're just the result of a full and thriving cinematic universe, and I miss it so. Wasp's fight at the beginning is super well choreographed and shows off her expertise with the suit really well. At one point, Ghost does the reverse flash special, leading to a genuinely intimidating scene. And this bit of the chase scene is really cool and goes to my point about how well the heroes are matched with Ghost. This movie's score bangs and adds so much energy to the action scenes. Like, whoever decided to give the Ant-Man movies a jazz-influenced score needs their dig so. And lastly, Giant Ant. That's it. Look at him drumming. You go, Giant Ant. All of that to say, yeah, I think Ant-Man and the Wasp is pretty darn good. Not perfect, but much better than the reputation it's given. The movie features an exciting plot, a diverse cast of characters and motivations, expands on the world of the MCU through tiebacks and a bit of setup, comedy that hits more than it misses, and a genuinely fun viewing experience that feels not like high cinema, but a damn good theme park ride. At the end of the day, how you choose to view Ant-Man and the Wasp is how you want to view it. But if you haven't watched it since the first Trump presidency, do yourself a favor and give it another shot. You might be in for a treat. As you might notice, this is my first YouTube video and I'm so happy I finally had the chance to get it out there. If you like this style of video, please consider subscribing and let me know in the comments what other movies don't deserve their reputations. Thank you so much for watching and remember to stay anti-critical.